All right, second graders, welcome back. We are now ready to finish up this henna project, okay? So now that you have your hands finished and your backgrounds finished, we are going to get ready to put the two of those things together, okay? As you can see, I have already cut my hands out, and I'm gonna be totally honest with all of you. It took me a long time to cut these hands out. That's why they look as good as they do, because I really took my time when I was going in between all the fingers and everything. So when you are cutting out your henna hands, you have the option to use either the small scissors or the large scissors that are in your table bin. However, if you get started and you're using the large scissors and you realize that maybe you're not doing your best cutting job, please switch to the small scissors, okay? The small scissors can be a little bit easier if you have smaller hands. And you spent so long working on these henna hands that we don't want these henna hands to get all messed up because of your cutting if you're using scissors that are not the right size for you. So please change to the right size of scissors if you need to, okay? So if you're using large and you need to go to small, that is perfectly fine, okay? So that's going to be step number 1. So if you need to pause the video and get your hands cut out really quick, let's do that now. Okay, and now that we have the hands cut out, you are going to need your backgrounds back for the next step. This is how my background dried. Of course, all of our backgrounds are going to look different, okay? And here's what you're gonna do. Now that you have your hands in your background, you need to decide how you want your henna hands to go on your paper because they're gonna be displayed on this background. So the first option is how I have my hands right now. They could just stay like this. This is how they were when we had them on the piece of paper when we were decorating the henna hands. So that's option 1. Another option could be to have one hand facing up and maybe one hand facing down like this to make it a little more interesting. You also could do something like this where you have one hand attached to a side and one to the bottom. I hope you're noticing with all these options, my arms are always attached to an edge. The flat edge of your arm should be attached to a side of the paper. You shouldn't be floating like this. Okay, that looks kind of creepy. They look like gloves. We don't want them to look like that. So they need to be attached to a wall of your paper, an edge, okay? That's another option. If your hands can fit like this, you could do this. I don't think my hands are gonna fit this way because they're too big. Yeah, they're a little too big. See how these fingers are crisscrossing? So if your hands can fit this way without overlapping, this could be an option for you if you want your hands facing in this way. Doesn't really matter which way you pick. If I had to pick, I think I would have mine like this, okay? Now, once you've decided which way your henna hands are going to go, then you can get ready to glue them. Please make sure that you have already figured out which way they fit before you start gluing. Otherwise, you might start gluing and then realize the way that you want them to go doesn't actually work, and I don't want that to happen to you, okay? So make sure they fit before you start gluing. We are using liquid glue in a glue bottle. So we're gonna open it up and I'll get one glued on camera for you guys. We're gonna do dot, dot, not a lot, all the way around. Okay, I am going around every single finger. I'm not using too much glue though. That's why we do dot, dot, not a lot, so that we don't have too much glue. If you have too much glue, then your glue is probably gonna squirt out on the sides of your henna hands. And again, we worked really hard on these, so we don't wanna mess them up with bad cutting or bad gluing, okay? Set that to the side. We're gonna flip this over. Now very carefully, I'm gonna make sure the flat edge of my hand is stuck to the bottom of my paper. I'm gonna line that up first, okay? Then I can let my hand drop, and I'm gonna have to press a few different times. So I'm gonna press 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I didn't get my fingers yet, so now I have to do the fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, Lift that one off, do a little shake test, and I think that is good to go, okay? Now, sometimes when we are sticking thick paper like this to a background that has a lot of paint and water that was on it before it dried, sometimes this paper does not like to stick to this. So if it does not stick very well the first time, you're just going to need to lift that hand off. Or let's say maybe you have a thumb that won't stick, you could peel that thumb back, put a little bit of glue underneath it, and just press it back down, okay? But if the whole hand falls off, you will need to re-glue that. That can sometimes happen with this type of paper, okay? So then, your next step would be to glue your second hand down, and of course, remember when you're finished to close your glue bottle. I didn't end up with a lot of glue on the tip, but I do have a little. So I'm gonna take that off. Remember, we can rub it together in our fingers and it disappears. Okay, let's make sure these get into the drying rack when they are finished.